Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
After graduating with my medical administration degree, I spent 2 years job hunting during the pandemic. When this position opened up, I jumped at the opportunity. The pay wasn't amazing, but it was steady work, and I genuinely enjoyed helping patients most of the time. The clinic where I work specializes in various medical examinations and tests. We handle everything from routine blood work to specialized scans. Like any medical facility, we deal with late arrivals daily. It's just part of the job. Traffic, emergencies, life happens. We usually try to accommodate these situations when possible, especially for elderly patients or those who traveled from far away. That day started like any other. I've been working there for about 8 months and things were running smoothly. The afternoon schedule was winding down and we only had a few patients left to see. That's when he walked in. I could tell something was off from the moment he approached my desk. His body language was tense, and he had this impatient energy about him. Still, I maintained my professional demeanor and greeted him, asking about which exams he was scheduled for today. His response was curt and demanding, telling me he had an exam scheduled and that I shouldn't waste his time as he didn't have all day. He practically threw his paperwork at me. I checked the schedule and immediately noticed he was 2 hours late for his appointment. This wasn't just a few minutes, this was a significant delay that would impact other patients' schedules. I politely explained that I needed to check with the doctor about including him in the schedule. He immediately became argumentative, demanding to know why this was necessary since he was already present. I tried to explain that his appointment was scheduled for 2 hours ago, and we needed to see if we could fit him in without disrupting other patients' appointments. He dismissed my explanation, stating that this was our problem to solve, not his, and that I should just do my job. I contacted the doctor, who was already handling a full load of patients. As expected, they couldn't accommodate an additional examination without severely impacting the remaining scheduled patients. I began to explain apologetically that the doctor couldn't include him in today's schedule and started to offer to help reschedule him for tomorrow. I never got to finish that sentence. His fist connected with my face before I could react. The impact sent me stumbling backward, my head spinning from the force of the blow. My nose was throbbing, and I could taste blood in my mouth. Through my dazed state, I heard shouting and commotion. Our security guards, who thankfully were always stationed nearby, immediately rushed in and restrained him. He was still yelling threats as they dragged him out of the building. My supervisor rushed to my aid with an ice pack and first aid kit. She was furious, not at me, but at the situation. She immediately called the police and told me that the clinic would be pressing charges for assault. The responding officers took my statement and told me that given the security camera footage and multiple witnesses, this would be an open and shut case. I took a week off to recover, both physically and mentally. During that time, I learned that the patient had been arrested and was facing assault charges. The clinic's legal team was incredibly supportive, ensuring all my medical expenses were covered and that I had access to counseling services if needed. When I returned to work, I discovered that the clinic had implemented new security measures. They installed panic buttons at all reception desks and added an extra security guard during peak hours. My supervisor also gave me more flexibility to work in the back office if I wasn't comfortable at the front desk yet. The most satisfying part came 3 months later when I had to testify in court. The patient tried to claim he was provoked, but the security footage showed otherwise. He was sentenced to 6 months in jail and ordered to pay substantial restitution. The judge was harsh, noting that attacking healthcare workers was a serious offense that warranted strict punishment. I'm still working at the clinic, though I did consider leaving after the incident. However, the support I received from my colleagues and the changes implemented to protect staff convinced me to stay. Plus, there's something empowering about not letting one terrible person drive me away from a job I otherwise enjoy. Still, I keep that panic button within easy reach, just in case. Back in 2007, when I was 14, I finally managed to save up enough money to buy something I'd been dreaming of for months. A brand new iPod Nano that could play videos. I worked all summer as a lifeguard at our local pool, did odd jobs around the neighborhood, and saved every penny of my allowance. My parents had a strict policy about expensive items. If we wanted them, we had to earn them ourselves. It taught us responsibility, they said. My younger sister, who was 13 at the time, was not happy about this at all. She'd always been jealous when I got nice things, even though I worked hard for them. The day I brought my iPod home, she immediately started causing problems. She started complaining loudly about how unfair it was that I got to have an iPod and she didn't. My mom tried to explain that I had worked all summer and saved my money for it. My sister wouldn't listen and kept insisting it wasn't fair, accusing our parents of playing favorites. My dad had to step in and tell her that they hadn't bought it for me. I had bought it myself, and she could do chores and save up just like I did. I kept my iPod with me at all times because I knew my sister couldn't be trusted. I'd saved up $200 for it, and there was no way I was letting anything happen to it. But one day, I made the mistake of leaving it charging at our family computer while I went to get a snack. When I came back, it was gone. I asked my mom and dad if they had moved my iPod, but they said they hadn't touched it. When I confronted my sister about it, she immediately got defensive and denied taking it, then stormed off to her room, slamming the door. My parents searched her room but couldn't find it. I was furious, but I couldn't prove she'd taken it. That is, until a few days later when my best friend texted me during lunch period. My friend messaged me saying he'd just seen my sister showing off my iPod in the cafeteria. When I asked if he was sure it was mine, he confirmed it by describing the distinctive scratch on the back from when I dropped it the week before. He told me she was letting her friends play with it. I immediately went to the school office and called my parents. They were livid. It turned out my sister had given it to her friend to hide until things calmed down at home, knowing our parents would search her room. When confronted, she finally confessed. My dad told her she was grounded for a month. No phone, no computer, and no going out with friends. She protested that it wasn't fair, but my mom shut that down quickly by pointing out how unfair it was that she stole from me after I'd worked all summer for the iPod. But I wasn't satisfied with just getting my iPod back. You see, I've been teaching myself basic computer programming, and while I wasn't exactly the hacker I thought I was, I knew enough to cause some trouble. I created a script disguised as Internet Explorer, complete with the browser's icon. When clicked, it would change the screen resolution, switch to 16-color mode, and spam random pop-up messages while slowly making the computer unusable. One evening, after my sister's color guard practice, I heard the sweet sound of chaos erupting from her room. She started yelling for our parents, panicking about something being wrong with her computer. Her screen was filled with messages like, "Warning, system has detected excessive drama queen behavior," and "Error, hard drive has been contaminated with attitude. Restart required." When my mom asked what was happening to her computer, I just innocently suggested that maybe she had downloaded something she shouldn't have. My sister had to use the family computer for her homework for the next few weeks while her laptop was broken. My dad suspected I had something to do with it, but couldn't prove anything. He did, however, make my sister apologize properly for stealing my iPod and make her buy me a new case for it since she'd thrown away my original one to make it harder to identify. She gave a reluctant but complete apology, admitting that she was wrong to take my iPod and acknowledging that she shouldn't have tried to hide it and lie about it. When my dad brought up her laptop issues, I offered to take a look at it, making sure to mention it might take me a while to fix. It took me 3 weeks to fix her laptop, during which time she learned to respect other people's property. These days, we actually get along great, and we can laugh about the whole incident. She even admitted that she was impressed by my revenge, though she still brings it up whenever I offer to help her with computer problems. She always reminds me about how the last time I helped with her computer, she got messages about peanut butter in her hard drive for weeks. We both learned our lessons, her about stealing and me about the creative uses of batch files and system commands. Though I have to admit, I'm much better at actual programming now than I was back then with my script kiddie days. As the nurse on duty in the emergency room that night, I was already exhausted from a long shift. The job can be demanding, but I love what I do. That evening had been particularly challenging. We were understaffed and had several critical cases come in back to back. Just before all hell broke loose, we had received a patient who was in critical condition from a car accident. My colleagues and I were working frantically to stabilize them when Karen burst through the emergency room doors with her son. I was at the reception desk when she stormed up, practically dragging her young boy behind her. The boy looked about 10 years old and had what appeared to be a small scratch on his arm. I told her to fill out some forms and take a seat, assuring her we'd get to them as soon as possible. Karen wouldn't have any of it. She demanded her son be seen right away, pointing at his arm and claiming he was bleeding. I looked at the boy's arm again. It was barely a scratch, the kind that could be handled with a band-aid at home. I tried explaining that while I understood her concern, we had several critical patients ahead of them. I assured her the wait wouldn't be too long. But Karen just got more agitated, questioning my competency as a nurse while pointing at the barely visible scratch. I attempted to reason with her again, explaining that we had patients with life-threatening injuries and needed to prioritize based on the severity of the cases. Karen shot back that she didn't care about other patients and insisted her son came first. Her voice was getting louder, and other patients in the waiting room were starting to stare. When I tried to explain our triage protocol, she cut me off, screaming that she didn't care about protocols and demanded to speak to whoever was in charge. I started explaining that the charge nurse was currently helping with a critical patient, but I never got to finish my sentence. Karen suddenly reached across the desk and grabbed a fistful of my hair, yanking hard. What she didn't know was that after years of dealing with aggressive patients, I'd taken up self-defense classes twice a week. My training kicked in automatically. In one swift movement, I broke her grip, twisted around, and had her arm locked behind her back. She dropped to her knees, screaming in shock more than pain. She started yelling threats about suing the entire hospital. I held her there, using just enough pressure to keep her immobilized without hurting her until security arrived a few moments later. They took over and escorted her out while her son watched in embarrassment, tears streaming down his face. Another nurse took the boy aside to treat his scratch and contact his father. The police arrived shortly after, and I pressed charges. The hospital's security cameras had captured everything, making it an open and shut case. But the real satisfaction came during the court hearing. Karen tried to paint herself as a concerned mother who was provoked by an uncaring nurse. Then they played the security footage. The judge was not amused. Not only did Karen get 6 months in jail and a hefty fine, but she also lost partial custody of her son to his father, who had been trying to document her erratic behavior for years. Turns out, this wasn't her first violent outburst in public, just the first time someone had fought back and pressed charges. The judge ordered her to complete 200 hours of community service, specifically in the hospital's non-emergency areas, cleaning and doing laundry. Under supervision, of course. I still see her sometimes, quietly mopping floors with her head down, avoiding eye contact with everyone. It's amazing how much more peaceful the emergency room is without people like her demanding special treatment. I've been working as a developer for about 5 years now. Started at this company 2 years ago after moving to the city for better opportunities. The pay is great, the work is interesting, but there was this one thing that kept bothering me. Someone at the office had sticky fingers when it came to other people's lunches. See, I love cooking. It's my way of unwinding after a long day of coding. I make these elaborate meals that usually last me several days, and I bring them to work in containers clearly labeled with my name. We have this communal fridge in the break room where everyone stores their food. At first, I thought I was just being forgetful when my lunches started disappearing. Maybe I had eaten them and forgotten. But then I started hearing other co-workers complaining about the same thing. That's when this one co-worker, let's call her Karen, would come up with these half-hearted apologies about not seeing the names on the containers. One day, I asked around the office about my missing curry that was in a blue container with my name on it. Karen quickly apologized, claiming she hadn't seen any name on it. When I pointed out that it was written in black marker and would have been hard to miss, she brushed it off by saying she must have been in a hurry and promised to be more careful next time. But she never was. It happened once or twice a month, just infrequently enough that management didn't take it seriously when people complained. It was infuriating, especially since I put time and effort into my cooking. One day, after she ate my homemade lasagna that took me 3 hours to make, I decided enough was enough. I ordered a bag of Ghost chili peppers online. When they arrived, I made a massive pot of chili and dumped the entire bag in. Now I enjoy spicy food, but this was nuclear-level heat. I brought it to work and waited. Sure enough, by Wednesday, my lunch disappeared. Later that day, Karen suddenly left work feeling sick. The next day, she didn't show up at all. Word got around that she'd gone to the doctor for severe stomach pains. 2 weeks passed, and Karen wouldn't even look at me. Then I got an email saying Human Resources wanted to meet with me. I knew exactly what was coming, so I prepared. I made another batch of chili, this time with just 1 ghost pepper, and put it in the freezer. When they tried to schedule the meeting for that day, I responded by email explaining that I needed 24 hours to arrange for someone to accompany me to this meeting, as was my right. The next day, I walked into that meeting with my department manager and my freshly heated ghost chili. The Human Resources representative started by accusing me of deliberately poisoning a coworker. I asked if this coworker had admitted to stealing my clearly labeled lunch. Karen reluctantly admitted she had, but tried to argue that this wasn't the point, and claimed I could have killed her. That's when I revealed I had brought some of that same chili today and offered it to everyone present. My manager tried it first, followed by a few others. Yes, it was incredibly spicy, but obviously not poison. I ate a whole bowl right there in front of them. My manager backed me up, explaining that if someone takes food that isn't theirs, they run the risk of eating something that doesn't agree with them, whether that's due to allergies, spice level, or any other reason. The meeting ended with no action taken against me, but Karen just got a warning about stealing lunches. She laid low for a while, but then lunches started disappearing again. That's when my manager stepped up. He went straight to Human Resources with the meeting records, specifically highlighting where Karen had admitted to stealing lunches. The next day, she was escorted out of the building with her termination letter citing theft of property. A week later, I heard that she'd tried applying for a job at our competitor's company, but without a reference from us, and with terminated for theft on her record, she didn't get very far. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.